So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Mandy Nichols, who's co-founder at Head Agenda. So, firstly, Mandy, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Head Agenda, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Great. Hi, Chris. Thanks for having us. Yeah, Head Agenda. Right. Can we start again?
We can start again. Relax.
Sorry.
It's
Okay.
all right. We'll start again. Not a problem. Just firstly, relax. Secondly, it doesn't matter if I do it all the time. So just
Okay.
keep talking. We're great. If it gets, but please relax and just say. I always say, just say it from here.
Yeah.
Just say it
Yeah.
from here. You
Will
don't,
do.
whether I may have set you up for talk about highlighting what you do. We'll get out of that. I'll ask you a few questions about that. So just tell us what you do. Wait, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Brilliant. We'll go again. I should have one of those things, those tape things, I think, but I haven't. So we'll just go again. Um, so welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Mandy Nichols, who's co-founder at Head Agenda. So firstly, Mandy, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Head Agenda, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So I'm Mandy Nichols, co-founder of Head Agenda. We're a psychotherapy, counselling, coaching provider based in Leeds. And we've two clinics in Leeds working for self-referrals, people who want to come along and try and improve what's going on for them, any problems that they're having, any anxiety, relationship difficulties, and so on. And as well as helping individuals, we also work with organisations. And over the last couple of years, we've been working with many sport NGBs, supporting their safeguarding officers and senior execs. So that includes British Gymnastics, Swim England, England Golf, Lawn Tennis Association, Park Run, Yorkshire Cricket. So that's a really interesting area of work for us, and it changes, and
Yep.
it's a highly regulated area, but we're there just to support people, because obviously there's a hell of a burden that goes along with being a safeguarding officer in those
Yes.
organisations. So we help them.
That's fascinating. No, we, I do, I do some other conversations with people around sports and leadership. Being as part of being a coaching organisation, one of the things we've taken from sport is coaching principles. So I find some people some people that call us as business coaches are just rebranded consultants who are there to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Which is fine, has a value, but coaching for me is asking lots of great questions, helping people
Yeah.
find their way through. And so
Yeah.
we work a lot with sports organizations, sports individuals. So that would
Yeah.
be another great conversation to have at some point. I'd love to talk
Yeah,
in
absolutely,
more
absolutely.
detail
Well,
like that.
what we find is, certainly since COVID, lots of organisations had mental first aiders and so on, and within safeguarding as well, within sports organisations, it's huge and important.
Yes,
And what we realised was that nobody was actually supporting the supporters.
yes, yes.
So as a therapist, I have support, I have regular supervision, and that's essentially how it began. And it's just kind of snowballed now. So, and it's all been through word of mouth, which is wonderful as an organisation to be able to say.
Absolutely brilliant. Now it's funny you say that. I've become very friendly with a very experienced rugby league coach,
Yeah.
and I've known him now for sort of 4 or 5 years. And I remember having a chat with him several years ago, and I said, "Look, one of your jobs is supporting the players. It's keeping them at peak performance physically, but also mentally in many ways. It's supporting the whole person." And I said, "And who supports you?"
Mhm.
And so I'm not claiming to be his coach in any way, shape, or form, but I think just having those conversations, and we do quite regularly, to be able to support, to help find people find their way forward is so important.
Well, it is, because what impacts us at work impacts us at home as well.
Yes.
And so it's a real vicious cycle, you know, and with that kind of work, it's so confidential. You can't take it anywhere. You can't talk about it at home.
Of course.
You can't talk about it in, you know, at the pub with your mates. It's highly confidential. So there's nowhere for it to go.
Goodness.
And it just helps with the processing as well of the work. We don't get involved in advising them, but certainly in terms of how they manage their mental health whilst they're supporting.
Brilliant. That's wonderful. And I believe you're an award-winning organisation as well. Would that be?
We are, yeah. We've won quite a few awards. This year we've won the best psychotherapy provider in the UK by the Mental Health Awards. We've also won best safeguarding supervision support in the UK recently as well. So we're very, very proud of the awards that we. But obviously, they're great to have, but the work that we do is what we find more rewarding, to be honest. That sounded really, really fuzzy, didn't it? But
not at all. Not at all.
We mean it.
It doesn't sound at all. I think I totally get it. We do what we do because it's important to do what we do. And the awards are nice to have, but they're not fundamental. But what they are is a recognition of what you do.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to be able to. One of the challenges I find. I mean, this may not be true of you, so forgive me if I'm picking this up, but I find lots of entrepreneurial people are focused almost entirely on what they haven't achieved yet, rather than what they have.
Right. Yes.
You struggle to celebrate. It's like, we got this, but now we've got to, and for me, and it's one thing we do with all of our clients and people that we work with on a regular basis is get people together on a regular basis, but also celebrate together. And even having 20 minutes just talking about some of the things we've achieved in the last quarter is, for me, crucial because it creates it builds some level of resilience by building a wall of, yes, we are good at what we do, to be able to be a bit more resilient against the challenges when they come and we start to tell ourselves we're not very good at what we do.
That's right.
That makes any sense.
I think resilience is a really interesting key word as well, because I think we all need that resilience, and certainly young people as well, sort of, coming through and starting their careers and so on, and right up to senior managers,
Yes.
The resilience is key to survival, really, and especially in business.
I completely agree, and we were talking a little bit about COVID earlier, and I personally believe that the whole population's mental health just dropped by a percentage, which dropped. Yeah. So I know that's true of myself, but will have dropped a whole bunch of people into an unhealthy level of mental health well-being that they weren't before. And so it's really, really important that organisations like yours do what you do to help people build their mental resilience and deal with the challenges that we have, because it while a lot of things have become easier over time, certainly doesn't feel like running businesses, living life has become that much easier.
No, there's constant challenges, and I think that's one of the things, sort of learning as a business owner, that you have to adapt. So it's and I know we talk about it a lot, about it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it.
Yes.
And try and find the positives out of it, because there will be some. So it's having to adapt, having to change, having to know your market. What do they need? What are they looking for? What can you do better than somebody else?
Yeah.
And I guess that's how Head Agenda started, really. It was started by myself and Juliet Thornton. We met in a school playground. We've both done a bit of training. I went into training after working 20 years in advertising. Right. And when I qualified, I went to work in the NHS, and then did some private practice, and realised I was renting really grotty rooms in Leeds, because that's all that was available, and working with some people that some weren't even qualified. Some had done a weekend course. I'd done 3 years at University of Leeds.
Yeah.
And the difference, the levels in work was quite obvious to me, and it scared me really, because I was trying to build a reputation.
Yes.
And Jules and I got together and said we kind of had this vision that what we wanted to do was create a business and an environment where self-minded therapists who were highly qualified with all the same kind of practice values working together in a lovely environment, in a professional environment.
Brilliant.
Because where we decided to work, there were lots of professionals coming to see us, and why couldn't the environment that they came to be as nice as the environment they'd left in the offices?
Brilliant.
And at that time, and this was 13 years ago when we set up, you would look for a therapist who might be working from their front room or from a back room, or and that's okay, and that's great, and I understand why you do that. But this was a serious job, and I wanted our environment to reflect that. So that's kind of how we set up.
But I mean, brilliant. I remember there's a dentist, a guy called Paddy Lund, who has focused on providing a great experience for his clients. And one of the things he realised quite early on, the reason he did it was that he said people don't really understand the level of skill of what we do. They only understand the outcomes and the environment and their experiences. So, if I'm going to come into a, let's say, shabby room, I'm going to start to reflect on the quality of the service I'm going to receive. And so I think it's really, really relevant. And 13 years, well done. I don't know if you know the really sad stats of business survival, but unfortunately, and this is very much across businesses and industry over a number of years, unfortunately, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years of operation.
Really?
And of the 20% that survive, another 80% of those will fail in the following 5 years. So to get to 10% get to 10 years puts you in the sort of top 4% or 4% of business successes. So congratulations. It's again worth celebrating.
Thank you.
And again,
I'm not very good at celebrating.
No, I've started to realise that. But it's really important, and again, a point of difference, I would imagine, with lots of other people that may or may not consider themselves competition or similar people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it doesn't just end with the environment that you're working in. It's the level of service that people I think are due. So
yes,
it's making sure that we respond professionally. There's lots of reminders. There's lots, we make it as easy as possible, because we realise that when people do come to see us, they're not in a great place.
Yes.
They've probably got 1,001 other things to think about, and the detail of when is their appointment is just something as basic as that, reminding them, helping them. If it's not the right time, it's okay. We write to them and say, don't worry, come back to us whenever you're ready. The door's not shut because you didn't come back. Because therapy is different for everybody, and what we want from it is different too. And our approach to it is different.
Yes.
So, and that's, we thought, right, what can we do that's better? I mean, I had 20 years in advertising before I chose this path. And so, I understood marketing, I understood markets, I understood the demographics, and that was a huge value, actually, and addition to our success, I suppose, because we just think of it slightly differently, whereas a lot of therapists come from the healthcare sector. So, I worked in the NHS too as a therapist, and that was brilliant, and realised that, the NHS is run on goodwill.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But great experiences.
Brilliant. So when you were growing up, did you envisage yourself running a practice like this, or did you have other?
Oh, no. No. education wasn't valued in my household. It was, you know, you leave school at 16 and you go get a job, and that's what I did. So I didn't go to uni until I was 40.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, so it was, and I left school with 2 O levels, although on my CVs it never said that. But I left school with 2 O levels because I was working at the time when I was doing my exams, and I guess I kind of left school thinking I was a bit thick, and you know, I needed to stay in my lane. I come from a council estate, and you know, lovely people, and you know, respectable people. But it was about staying in your lane, really, you know.
Yeah.
So I had all this critical voice of who do you think you are, and what have you. And then I just flukily landed a job in an ad agency, and that really changed everything, really. And I, you know, saw how things could be. I met new people, interesting people, met my husband, and had a ball.
Brilliant.
And and how I got into therapy was my husband and I went to couples counselling before we were married. And it wasn't the experience I thought it was going to be. It was just revelationary in terms of why I responded the way I did to him, why he responded the way he did to me, all to do with, you know, parenting and all of that. So that really just ignited a spark in me. That it was, I mean, we didn't want to leave. We loved it. It was great. We learned so much, and we're 35 years on. We're still together. So so it's so that's how I got interested.
Wonderful. And as you've grown, what are some of the you know, looking backwards, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome as an organisation and as an individual?
I would say, good weather is a challenge, because everybody would much rather go to the beer garden than go for therapy. Why would you do that?
I thought you were going to say everyone feels better when the weather's nice. I mean, that must be a double whammy. They feel better and they want to go to the pub.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Good weather. Goodness.
I guess COVID was huge.
Yes.
Because nobody worked online.
Yeah.
People would come into their practice, they would pay for the session, usually in cash, and all of a sudden it just went.
Right.
So we had to respond very, very quickly, because we knew that our clients needed the support still. And we had a duty of care.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we just changed everything. So all therapists went online. We organised so that clients could pay direct into the bank, which wasn't really that common for us, for our business.
Yeah.
And in fact, some therapists left because they thought that it was a breach of confidentiality for us to see a client has paid for their session, which was just crazy. It just shows you how things have moved on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand the thought process, but it is crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, we just continued, and most people in COVID had a great time, didn't they? They were enjoying the sunshine, and I'd never worked as hard in my life.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. So that was a challenge. We also had to rebrand, which was scary. After 9 years, we had to rebrand. We were legally challenged by people.
Okay.
In San Francisco, and it was scary.
And
it does happen, doesn't it?
It does happen. It is a thing. I think they call it what do they call it? It's something ransom, is it? Brand ransom or something, isn't it? Where you know, I mean, sometimes it's legitimate. You've got the same or whatever, but sometimes just do it for saying, "Oh dear, well, I'm glad you've gone through that as well." Goodness, there's some significant.
Yeah. It was really, and I guess you know, we learned a lot from it. And again, it's how you adapt. It's like, right, okay, this is what we need to do. There was no point fighting it. So it was right. Let's move forward and see what we can do. And my husband came up with the name Head Agenda. Yeah, and I think that's it. We're not afraid to change. We're not afraid to review anymore, because nothing can be worse than COVID.
No, I 100%. I mean, I sort of stopped saying this actually, but if you look over the last, it'll be 11 years now, we've had three very, very significant things. We've had COVID, we've had Brexit, and we've had the war in Ukraine, and all of those things have affected us in different ways, different businesses as more or less. But those three things you'll never see in that sort of 10-year period ever again. I don't think those such significant. So it's coming through that, and I found, I mean, in my previous business and now in this one, goodness, I must have gone through three or four recessive cycles, and getting through is a big win without a shadow of a doubt. It's just, we don't have to grow through it. Some businesses are lucky enough to grow as a result or through it. Just getting through, because unfortunately that probably it often means because some of our competitors gone by the wayside, but the reality was they were probably hanging on, in good times, and they just weren't able to survive in poor times, and that's sort of just part of a natural economic cycle. But getting through and then being able to look back and say it's not as bad as that. I was telling somebody the other day actually, I was blessed enough to go traveling quite a long time ago. I won't say how long. But we took a bus. I think it's about 24 hours from, I think it was Varanasi in India to Pokhara in Nepal, and it was a very long way. And I remember coming around the corner we were in Nepal, and we were coming around. It was one of these sort of quite steep sided roads. It was very windy. And I only saw this for a split second, but we came past, there was a lay-by on the right-hand side, and they were doing some roadworks. And I just saw this for sort of a framed picture for a split second, but I can still remember it really clearly. There was a fairly young mother um, kneeling in this lay-by with a papoose and a baby on her back, and she had a pile of stones of about this size and a little hammer, and her job was making gravel by hitting the stones. And if she didn't do that, I guess she probably wouldn't be able to feed her children. And in that split second, I realised that my life can never, I'm sure she was really happy. I mean, I honestly believe she was probably a very happy person, because just everybody we met in Nepal were just naturally happy people. But my life, I would consider that to be, that would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me. It's never going to happen. And
No.
it's helped me be more resilient than I probably would have been if I hadn't had that experience.
Yeah. Well, in terms of personal challenges, I mean, that's one of the things, is to be resilient. One of the things that I don't do now, which I always kind of did, and that may have been because of my background, is like waiting for permission. I don't wait for permission now. I will, we'll try something. If it doesn't work, we change it. Trusting my instincts, that's been a challenge too. Thinking that somebody knows better than you do, but actually, I know myself. And all of that childhood stuff of, which I'm sure most people that you have, you speak to talks about, is that, imposter syndrome. Thinking, I'm going to get caught out eventually, or they're going to realise, I'm not as clever as they think I am, or, and they're the personal challenges.
Absolutely, but probably more than half the people that I speak to on these interviews talk about imposter syndrome. There's a great quote from Stephen Bartlett, who's the guy that wrote the Diary of CEO. And I love it because he says, I love imposter syndrome because it means I'm in the right room and I might learn something. And I really like that. It's like, I mean, like, if you're not feeling it, then maybe you need to be in a different room. You know, to be working with different people. It's too easy. So I think, but every single human being has their own. I'm sure you know this better than I. Comes with their own faults and challenges and stuff. So even the people that we see just going through life, allegedly never getting things wrong, there'll be some crap going on there somewhere.
Absolutely. And I think what I do now is, instead of being scared of it and wanting to just run away and hide, what I do now is I kind of turn it on its head, and obviously I will, because I've had a lot of training, a lot of therapy and so on.
Yes.
But I turn it on its head and think, right, okay, why is it here? So I kind of use it to inform me.
Great.
What's going on right now that's making me feel like this, instead of fearing it.
Yes.
And allowing that to change my behaviour. I think
Yes.
I view it objectively, which I think is quite helpful. And I really hate the phrase syndrome, because it implies it's genetic, there's nothing you can do about it, and it's learnt behaviour.
Somebody, it's really interesting to say that. I was speaking to somebody, I must find this now. So they've rebadged it, or they heard it rebadged. So it's not syndrome, it's something like imposter advantage or something.
All right,
It's
okay.
an advantage because it keeps us driving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah,
syndrome suggests it's, as you said, it's an illness, it's a
yeah,
defect or something. But it's not evil. Wherever it's come from, it potentially has its advantages. So
yeah,
let's call it something positive rather than something
yeah,
negative in many ways. And
yeah.
yeah, it at least if it opens up learning,
Mm,
I feel I'm not good enough. But I agree with you. I mean, I've find that when I use those moments of fear and anxiety as taps on the shoulder, but
mm,
not reality. It's like, yeah,
mm,
thank you. You're warning me about
mm.
something. Great.
Yeah,
But and I'll have a look what that is. I think it sounds quite similar to your self-reflection. Okay, what is it that's making me feel a bit
yeah,
on edge? And then let's break that out and understand
yeah,
it. Is it real, or is it just, some reflection of something that's happened, or repeat of
yeah,
something that's happened historically, or so
yeah.
it's absolutely fascinating.
Mm.
And just talking about your business, what are the biggest learnings you've got about growing a business successfully, Mandy?
I, get research, know your market.
Yes.
Um, I think it's about doing what you do well, as opposed to looking and focusing on the growth, because I think the growth
Brilliant.
naturally comes. It's like, I would never, 2 years ago, I had no idea we'd be, the forefront providers for sport and GBs. It
Brilliant.
was just not there, but it just evolved. And I think, Juliet and I often sit and talk and say, how have we got here? Because, we'd already had the career. So this was just meant to be something
Yeah.
that we loved, and we still love it, and we still see clients, because that's the core of what we do and who we are. But I think what I've understood, and it's taken a long time, but I think what I've understood is that you can run a business that is heart-led, but still business-minded,
100%.
without losing who I am.
100%, without a shadow of a doubt.
And I think, years ago, I was always looking to see who I needed to be like, even if I didn't really like them.
Yes.
Or wanting their approval, or needing their permission. And actually, not anymore. I think if you lose yourself, because I'm not the business, and Juliet, we the business is healthy without us, but it benefits from us too.
Yeah, great. Quite right too.
Mm.
It sounds like we have something we call the law of precession, and it suggests that we operate almost at 90 degrees to what the expected outcome is. So for absolutely growth, profit, whatever you want to call it, success, you focus on doing the thing that's going to cause the success rather than success itself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and
and
be focused as well, because I think sometimes you can deviate, and it dilutes what it is you do
yeah,
and your product. So what I mean by that is, we're very good at doing what we do. We're often asked to go into companies and do some training and some psych ed for them, and we could do that, but actually our energy is wasted doing that, because it's not really what we do.
yeah,
You can do it, it's not. So I would say for growth, it's about establishing boundaries. I'm huge, any client of mine will say I'm huge on boundaries, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
To have your boundaries, stick with them, and
Yeah.
know and be comfortable with them. But they can be flexible and fluid.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest influence on you?
Um, I think I was thinking about this, and I think there's my first boss in advertising, Malcolm Wright, a real character,
Brilliant.
lovely man, great man, really inspired me and believed in me when, I was just a kid really and didn't know what she was doing, but he saw potential
Brilliant.
and so him, Juliet. So sometimes, we're a great partnership. I don't know if what you like if you work closely with people, but I'm ready to start running, and she'll kind of pull me back and
Brilliant.
go, hang on a minute. So
Yep.
she's a great coach for me. And my husband with his South Yorkshire wisdom and wit.
You can't beat them in the South Yorkshire wisdom and wit. No, absolutely. Brilliant.
He
Brilliant.
brings me down to earth.
And what was the advertising business you worked at?
I worked at Graham Poulter's. I worked at Advertising Principles, and I worked at Home, which is
Brilliant.
Home now.
So did you know Philip Hesketh?
I did.
Brilliant. I wouldn't say he's a close friend of mine, but he's a friend of mine. I've been lucky enough to speak, do a one day session course with him on stage with him.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, he's such a great guy. He's one of the for me, he's one of the best business speakers that I've ever seen, and
Really?
I've seen a lot. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen him speak, but he's brilliant.
Yeah. I like Steve McDermott. I think he's very
Yes,
good.
yeah. Brilliant, brilliant.
Mm.
And do you have any favorite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using a lot about business or success or life?
Well, I've probably already touched on it actually, which is the one, the feel the fear and do it anyway.
Susan Jeffers, brilliant, love it.
Definitely, because I think that if you feel the fear and you sit with it, and with any of our vulnerabilities, to sit with the uncomfortable can be really important, and then trust your instincts again. Yeah, I would say that.
It's an interesting thing. I have a lot of. I'll probably share these offline rather than online, but beliefs around fear. Our fear reaction hasn't evolved well enough for 10,000 years, relevant to the fear, to the threat in front of us. So that makes sense. Is that feeling that we might die was relevant when we walked out of caves or huts, and we might be eaten by a big scary animal 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But losing some money or losing a job or a fear of that, I don't think the subconscious manages to differentiate between the two, well enough.
No.
We have to try and do it logically, I
Yeah.
feel, and break it down as you described earlier. That idea of breaking down what's the cause of that feeling and what's going on, because it's so quick to get into panic and all sorts of things that really don't help us in any form of life, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think gut instinct is crucial, and there's lots of research coming out now about how the microbiomes are found in the brain and the gut and connected, and I think there's more to be discovered, which is really exciting.
I'm, as I say, and this is a very small amount of research, just lots of belief, which I'm happy to work on. It's the subconscious. It's the only way the subconscious can actually communicate. It doesn't have a direct connection with the conscious mind, so it's just got to go. But I can pull these strings, and I'll make your stomach go a bit funny. And and I think it is. And I think the point about going with your gut is it is again your subconscious being an incredibly powerful supercomputer, and it's processed what it certainly thinks the right decision is, and I'm not saying it's always right, but it's telling your gut this is good or this isn't good.
Yes.
And I'm really conscious of going into areas that where you're going to tell me I'm talking up my Jaxie, so I'm not going to go there. But I just think this, but I do think there's so much, as you said, so much undiscovered information about human physiology and psychology that who knows, who knows.
Absolutely. I mean, neuroscience is of making huge breakthroughs about neuroplasticity, and it's fascinating that,
Yeah,
and it always saddens me when, I'll meet somebody and will say, oh, well, I am what I am, and my mum will like that or my dad will like that,
yeah,
and I just think, oh no, because
yeah,
you might not need to be like that. That
absolutely.
it's about a choice, but you have to be brave and you have to be vulnerable to explore it.
It is really interesting, isn't it? Because you know I had this conversation with a few people. If you know if we speak to our kids and they say I am what I am, it's almost 80% of parents go, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah,
Just dream that you can. And yet we won't do that for ourselves.
yeah.
We'll put ourselves into. I'll compartmentalize myself, but I won't let you do that yet. And again, as you said, it's a learned behavior, isn't it? Typically,
Absolutely, and you'll come across it within your coaching, and we
100%.
we do too. That it it's okay setting goals, but actually you've got to know why you're sabotaging when you do, and we're skilled enough to be able to find out, well, where's that come from? Because
Yeah.
once you can understand it, you can manage it.
Yes. Yeah. I
It's you don't
100%.
understand, or you don't, you don't recognize it.
Yeah.
I work with lots of people and they don't even recognize it.
Yes. Absolutely. It's yeah, because we only know what we know, and so if we don't know that it's it's if we don't know it's changeable,
Yeah,
then it's fixed, isn't it? I guess that's the challenge. And
yeah.
do you have any favorite books or podcasts that you can recommend, whether that's on business or success or personal development, that any of your favorites?
Um, I like Stephen Bartlett. I think Jordan Peterson's interesting. I like to be challenged. Anything really. I think um, there's a book out at the moment called Generational Anxiety. I don't know if you've heard of
No.
that, which is really interesting about this generation of children who were growing up with, anxiety is this barrier, and it's the combination of helicopter parenting and
I'll read that.
and social media. So nothing in particular. I
Thank you.
like to, yeah, but that's I think that's really interesting. If anyone's watching who's got children, because the word anxiety is just used and thrown around, and we all have anxiety, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, as you've picked up on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
no, that's fascinating. Just reflecting, my daughter's just done, she's flying back on Thursday from 3 months in in
oh,
Asia
okay.
traveling. And some of the things she's had to overcome, they're not major dramas, but they are dramas. And,
Yeah,
an anxious mind would have,
yeah,
and I'm sure did, but she's overcome them. And
yeah,
she's gone from traveling with some friends to being on her own, dealing with that, not being very happy about it, but dealing with it.
yeah,
And I could just see talking to her yesterday, just how everything's fine. She's
yeah,
so much more together, and I appreciate not everybody has the ability to do something like that, but going, I certainly believe it's will be fundamental to a lot of self-reliance and self-confidence that she'll will have built over these last 3 months. It's just wonderful to see. Uh,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I'll read that because I think it's really valuable, and if I can, I'll get them to read it too. But that's about as likely as if you turn it into a game or something or a social media app, then we've got it sorted.
yeah.
Um, and what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Mandy?
Um, I think that I suppose there are three things that I've already touched on, which is knowing that I'm good enough,
Great.
um, trusting my instincts, and giving myself permission is are important. And I think um, coming from an environment where it wasn't a professional environment, and so everybody else knew better, everybody else was cleverer, everybody, I mean, one of the biggest things I've learned is, I used to think, your viewers may just think how ridiculous, but I used to think that somebody who had a posh accent were clever.
Yeah, that's
And I was always intimidated by it. We talked earlier about being from Yorkshire with the Yorkshire accent, and now that makes me laugh, because obviously that's not the case.
absolutely.
And but I think not losing yourself and losing who you are, and I bring humour into work all the time, because it's crucial, it's really important. And
Brilliant.
sometimes people are a bit shocked at that, probably because I'm not funny.
Well, there can be that can be the challenge, absolutely. But
But I think it's not losing yourself, and
yeah,
having the Yorkshire accent, as we spoke earlier, it cuts through.
yeah,
It really does. It opens doors, and you're heard and you're listened to.
brilliant. There was there was a lady I interviewed a little while ago. I can't quite recall the interview, but she had a great phrase which I loved, which was "Be yourself because everybody else is taken."
Yes.
And I just thought that's just brilliant because it's bang on, isn't it? It's like you can't be
Yeah.
somebody else, and yet so many of us, including myself, have tried to be like other people. When if I
Yeah.
just play to my strengths to be me, I'll
Yeah.
I'll end up where I'll end up. That's the key thing, and but at
Yeah.
least I'll still be me, whatever that looks like. And talking looking to the future now a little bit. What does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any, Mandy?
Um, well, I think, as we've touched on, it's difficult to predict the future after COVID and after things were, that kind of blindside you. So I think we concentrate on what we're doing now and what we can improve and what we
Yeah,
can constant review. I think the biggest threat for us and for many industries is AI.
yeah,
Um, I would imagine that lots of therapy is going to be undertaken by insurance companies and so on. That's going to be through AI. I mean, even some clients have contacted us because they've put into chat GPT, what's the best therapy organisation to go to, and it's great. We're coming up. I don't know how, but we are. Um,
yes,
how people are trusting it.
yeah.
Uh, and it does improve things, and it does make things better. But um, I in fact, I've just written a blog actually on um, the pitfalls and things to be aware of undertaking AI therapy.
Great. I yeah, I was thinking whether to ask you about AI. I mean, and I had a conversation with one of my colleagues recently, and I said, look, ultimately, not right now, but ultimately, we have to accept there is a reasonable chance that AI will be able to do what we do and possibly probably better. I'm not suggesting that of anybody else,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
be open to the possibility and act accordingly. But one thing I am really confident about, however this turns into a marketplace, is for a reasonably significant period of time, there will always be enough people that want to deal with a human being,
yeah,
whether they're better or not. Even accepting that the best answer in the world might come from a computer program, but they want to sit with somebody. And I think it's
yeah,
just understanding that there will still be a significant marketplace for quite a long time. I'm not
yeah,
saying forever because I don't know.
yeah,
And we have to adapt. It may be, and we've seen this many times where you're paying for a service. You're paying for the service, and you're paying way more for a great service than you are for an automated, a cheap server, whatever it would be. And just so it may be specialisms become more and more uh,
yeah,
high the prices go up because if you want cheap, go over there. Um, but no,
yeah,
you bang on it. I think the reality for everyone in just about anything is, if you don't embrace the fact that AI will have an impact on your future business, then you're probably going to be way more negatively affected than people that accept it.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is difficult. And
absolutely.
it's, I would say, that's a really cool thing, because clearly you're very good at what you do, and you've worked hard to be amongst the best. Not, and we said before we started that awards tell us that, but you know that, and you know how much you've spent on doing that. But therefore, not poo-pooing it, and not saying no, but we'll always be the best is a strategy for success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So bang on. Yes, no, I can imagine that. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Mandy?
Oh gosh, I'd say know your market. It
Yeah,
amazes me, where I live, how many shops open up, and I think, how are you? How do you think you're going to make that work? So know your market, be client focused.
yeah,
So one of the things that differentiates us from on the website is that lots of therapy companies, individuals will talk about themselves. Well, I work in this, and I do this, and I've been working in it for this long, and that's great. But actually, what does that mean to the end user? Doesn't mean anything. It's like, are you feeling like this? Well, what we can do is this. So it's about being client focused, I
yeah,
think, and just see how you can do it better than anybody else.
absolutely bang on.
But
And
to love what you do,
sorry,
and don't have these huge plans. Let it evolve and learn, because I didn't set out to be where we are now, as I've said, but we're learning as we go along, and I hope I never stop learning, because I think that would be the time to pack it in,
yeah,
really.
bang on.
And the same as a therapist, I don't know it all.
Yeah,
I'm pretty good at what I do, but I don't know it all. I'm still learning, and that's what I love about it. And
yes,
no two people or issues are ever the same, and it's interesting. So I think if you love what you do, and I'm lucky enough to say that, I didn't love what I did in advertising.
yeah,
I love this. I
brilliant.
do love it. And I think you can tell from people, can't you?
100%. It comes across, quite clearly
Yeah,
comes across.
yeah, and from yourself too. You can't fake it.
No.
And I think if you fake it, people know you're faking it.
100%. No, it's yes. You can't do that forever. You can't do that for any length of time, I don't think. But the reverse is true. The clarity with which you talk, it really is so clear how much you love what you do, and that
Good.
and the interesting thing from a business perspective is that's why your business will be successful. That's the point, and I think that's the point you were making earlier, is that if I focus on being good at what I do, the rest follows. And absolutely, I believe that
Yeah.
100%. I think it was Brian Tracy said, and I love this as well. He said this is more to do with individuals and organizations, but he said the most successful organizations and teams are the ones where most people spend most of their time doing the three things they really love and they're really good at.
Right.
And find other people that will do the
Yeah.
other things that we really don't like. And the reality is that it's a bit obvious, but if we don't like it, we'll choose not to be good at it. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not, or and the reverse sometimes happens. If I really can't do something, I'll choose not to like it. But
Yeah.
normally I don't want to do that, so I'll be bad at it.
Yeah.
That's why I've never done a day's DIY. Well, I did one day's DIY many years ago. Never was asked to do it again. So that's a tip for anyone out there to like DIY. And if you started again, obviously looking back over 13 years, is there anything significant that you do different, Mandy?
I don't know if we would actually, because we didn't have this big plan. We just wanted to do what we did, which is what we loved. And we our accountant's saying, well, you're going to retire, what's going to happen? And it's like, I've got absolutely no intention of retiring, because we do love what we do. So I don't think we would do anything. I suppose I'd I might be less apologetic,
Yeah, cool.
you
Cool.
know, so, but I don't know if that's just being you know, a working class woman who's, always kind of, would you mind if,
Yeah.
and so be less apologetic.
Yeah.
But once we hit 50, we're less scared.
Yes, I think there's age and experience and I would imagine self-reflection is like, why the hell did I spend all that time? And it's obviously a function of doing it enough times. But I think that
Yeah,
self-reflection is, did it serve me? Did it serve anybody else to
yeah,
be to do that? And
yeah.
and finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Just to say that you are good enough.
Brilliant.
You are
Yeah.
good enough.
Good enough. Back. Trust your gut, and there was a third one that you said a bit earlier.
Bring yourself permission.
Give yourself permission. Three very wise words for anybody. Very wise phrases. So thank you so much, Mandy. It's been really insightful and really enjoyable speaking to you. And for anyone that's watching right now that would like to get in touch with you or Head Agenda, what would be the best way of doing that?
Probably to go to the website, head-agenda.com.
Brilliant.
And all the information is on there if you want to contact us and see what we can. And you get to speak to a real person.
Get to speak to a real person. Brilliant. That's good. Good stuff. Well, one thing has come to mind while we're talking, and I think you address it quite well on the website. But what would you say to anybody that probably know they need some help and support, but are a bit fearful of making that first connection? There's still, I guess, there's still potentially a stigma of accepting mental health. I think that's disappearing really quickly with
Yeah.
how much people are talking about it. But what would you say to somebody that was a bit nervous about calling you or getting in touch? What?
I guess what I would say, one of the things that we're incredibly proud of, we've got over 70 5-star Google reviews, and they're all genuine reviews where somebody's actually bothered and wanted to, and they've done that because they want to help somebody else because they've been in that position where they think, I'm a bit scared of this. One of the things that comes up quite a lot is people go, well, I'm not crazy enough, or I'm not mad enough, or I'm not bad enough yet to go. They wait until they're at absolute rock bottom. Don't do that. Please don't do that. You don't need to do, because all it is a chat with somebody to help you understand yourself more. Who wouldn't want that? You get to talk about yourself for an hour. Great. Who wouldn't want that?
What a great way of putting it. Sorry, I was laughing probably inappropriate at the wrong time there, but I try to think how long ago my first business I had a what might be considered not quite a full blown breakdown, but a proper breakdown, and I then went to some counselling because I clearly needed it. Now, if I'd had some before that, I just got to that point of explosion where I just couldn't do it, and it literally,
Yeah.
and so you're saying quite rightly, before you get to that point, uh,
Yeah.
is
Do
just
it. Just go and see. Go and see what happens. And um, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just be you, and it will work. And trust the process. One of the other things that we offer is a single session, because what we sometimes find is, when you're in that place, and I do it in my supervision, where something's taking up more of my headspace than I want it to.
Yeah.
Or it's a specific thing. And I think, sometimes you think, is it me? Or is
Yeah.
the rest of the world? So it's not a historical problem, but you just need clarity. So it might be I don't know, you may be worried about a presentation or an appraisal or something, some form of change or a relationship, or, as long as it's not historical, if it's specific, just come on for one session and gain that clarity that you need, which is really helpful.
Brilliant. Well, Mandy, thank you so much today. It's been absolutely brilliant, and it'd be great to swing by another 6-12 months and just maybe just see what
Absolutely.
you've learned.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much.
Great. Okay, thanks, Chris.